For generations, the Caribbean islands have been home to some of the greatest athletes on the world stage, all of whom credit the Caribbean for its rich food basin and support structures. From home to health to gold. The intersection between sport and spirit have always gone hand in hand. So in today's special edition of Caribbean Medical TV, we go to a well-known high school in Jamaica to see how the youth are set to become the next ambassadors in not just sport, but health.
My name is Capt. I'm the head coach of St. Jago High School boys track and field team.
My name is Joseph Small. I am the head coach of the girls female program. Preparing an athlete is not just running on the track. You have the mental aspect, you have the nutrition aspect, and you have the support and the motivation. So there's a lot of factors that we have to look into, and we have to try to see how best we can deal with them as best as possible. For me, related to support is one of the biggest things. Once you have enough support, you can see how best you can nip some of these and try to see how best we can deal with some of these going forward.
These youngsters on the track, they leave it all out there when they're training because they believe in Jamaica. It's always been #1 from in the 1930s, and the legacy must continue. So these youth put their heart, their mind, and their soul in everything they do for the sports, for St. Jago and for Jamaica. These youth always believe in God. St. Jago is a religion school, and these youth believe in prayer. Even when they are warming up, going for meets, they have a group prayer before, and they always meet, pray before they enter a meet. Because religion is a thing that instills in us in the youngsters, and before they start participating. And when they go on the track, they believe in what they are doing, and they believe that there's a God above that help them to do the job that they are put out there to do. We as a coach, we have weekly meeting that we talk to these boys about. We will tell them that sports is like 40% physical, 60% mental. Because you have to have that tough mindset when you're going out there to compete against others. And we also have past students and past athletes representing Jamaica, and some of them who is presently representing Jamaica will come and they will talk to them and they will tell them how hard it was for them and how training hard, family life, and how they have to stick to it, and who can endure it through will make it. So you have to have that toughness if you want to do these sports.
As it is the mental health, that is one factor now that has been creeping in our team. It is very important because these students, they have to actually lock in mentally in order for them to go and compete. It doesn't really matter how fast they are. If they're not mentally in the sport and they're not mentally ready, they will not perform. I have a role to play as a coach, and what I do normally, I try to talk to them. I try to let other coaches talk to them, best we can prepare them. But sometimes they have a lot of distraction. So it is good when we have some time, the parents step in, the teachers step in, and other persons that can actually reach to them, can talk to them and let them know the purpose of them doing track and field and the reason why they are doing it.
I'm a field athlete, and I do shot put and discus for class 2. Well, I wanted to be like Roger Stone, as I said, because he came from St. Jago and he won the Olympic gold. Just very interesting athlete. I'd say that he's a very good athlete, and I aspire to be like him one day. Anytime I go to throw, I always think about my parents. I always think that this could be the throw that could help my parents to have a better life and help me as well to better my name. It just feels nice whenever you throw far and everybody sees it and says, wow, look how far you threw and all that. It just feels nice as well.
I'm Darrel Moiety. Throws specifically, discus and shot put. How did I join track and field? Originally I was living in Antigua and Barbados, came down here. St. Jago was like, ooh, you're the type of build we want, and I was very good with grades, so they put me into the choice program, and just from there, I'm here now. Well, I get that clear mind from the work that I put in training, just going out there and just believing and trusting in the program that I'm doing. And when I complete my program and I do it my absolute best, I don't have nothing to fear going in because I've done my best. So going to that competition, my mind is clear, so I'm just saying, okay, push, push, push.
I would like to see all the Caribbean region do well like us in Jamaica. I'd like to see Caribbean region dominate the Olympic overall event, and we are getting there. We see more Caribbean country is getting the exposure and they're doing well, and we want all the rest of them. We see Barbados, Bahamas, St. Lucia now, and Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago. We see those countries reaching the top, and we'll wish the other rest will join us and do the same.
For the youth, there's a lot of talent in the Caribbean region, right? They might not know, look at the outside world and see what they can do with their talent. So once they have the right guidance, the parents, they are very important. So once the parent can support them, I would just ask them to give it their best shot, try to see how best they can at least even collaborate also with other Caribbean countries, because we are here. And I mean, Jamaica here, I can't say that we're doing it by ourselves, even though we have athletes that, from the other Caribbean country coming in now, trying to seek help from Jamaica. We want to reach out to them as well. So the collaboration with other Caribbean countries, I like to see us, we get back together. I mean, since recently we have Julian Alfred, that once came to Jamaica and she trained here. The atmosphere, everything, she get a feel of the boys and girls champs and the development meets. And maybe that is one of the factors makes she actually become a world champion and a world beater. So for me, I would like for us to collaborate as best as possible and try to see how best we can, improve ourselves and just develop the sports as best as possible.
For eating purpose, we make sure these youngsters eat what we want them to eat. Especially, we have to look on the carbohydrate, the protein, the intake of fat, and all the necessary thing to make a balanced diet. So when eating, we also have a heavy lunch, sometimes because we know the breakfast may be not well, and we make sure that the lunch is balanced with yam, a little rice, not much protein for meat, and vegetable for roughage. And we also recommend that they don't drink any soda. It's either orange juice or fruit juice for these youth to keep themselves healthy. And it's the same way for us, the adult, as for the kids.
So when it comes to nutrition, you have to think about more healthy options on your plate, not just having a full plate, okay? And if it is that you are traditionally having a large plate of unhealthy food, now you have to think about maybe having a smaller plate with more nutritious food.
And I always tell persons, eating healthy does not have to be boring, and I am a strong advocate of that. The Mediterranean diet, and when I say diet, I am not talking about restricting food. I like cooking and I like tasting good food, but good food that tastes well also should be good for your body. And the Mediterranean diet has been proven to improve cardiovascular outcomes, improve diabetic outcomes, because what we know is that ensuring that you get good quality vegetables, reducing that red meat intake, focusing a little bit more on your fish, and when you're coming to your starch portions, persons within the Caribbean tend to like macaroni pie and rice and peas. But there's nothing wrong with, for instance, having a bit of brown rice. We can put in the garlic and the onions and the chives and put in some marjoram and thyme. Really season up that pot.
The diet of St. Lucia, a lot of it is cultural. The diet of most of our islands, it's cultural. So here, green figs are a big thing, dasheen ground provision. So it has always been cultural. So before, because people worked in the plantations and jobs that required a lot of physical exertion, it was important for them to eat diets with a lot of starches that will carry them throughout the day because they may not have time. They need the energy to focus. We're also looking at the fats that we eat, the types of fats that we eat in the diet. So we eat a lot of saturated fats, which comes from a lot of fried foods and processed foods and so we need to aim to try to cut those types of fats and eat healthier fats, which are the unsaturated fats. These things come from things like your olive oil, your fatty fish, tuna, mackerel, salmon, and these things. So we're trying to incorporate more of these things into your diet. However, now we're noticing with the American influence, portion sizes have gotten bigger in general throughout the world. So when you have this happening, along with the cultural tradition of eating a large meal, right, that has not changed. You will find, but the sedentary lifestyles now have taken over from what was a physical activity that you might have been doing for work.
I guess my message is, it has many layers. It's kind of going out to the politicians as well to pay attention to nutrition. You know, hire more nutrition professionals, give more scholarships to people who are interested in studying nutrition, because we definitely know there's a lack in nutrition professionals in the Caribbean. And we need to have those trusted individuals to give us accurate information. There is too much myths and misconception and misinformation with regards to where nutrition is concerned. I also want to emphasize to people, plant your food, right? Because we see that food insecurity is just becoming very high. Food insecurity is so high that it's difficult to even get fruits, it's difficult to get vegetables. So what we do, we eat more pasta, we eat more rice, which is kind of refined, right? So the more that we could get into agriculture, linking agriculture to nutrition, that is something that I would like to emphasize to people. Plant your foods. If you have backyard, try to emphasize a backyard garden where instead of adding too much salt to your gravies or to your food, you use your side, your celery, your thyme, right? Instead of the salt, because we really rely on these things for flavor. We use salt for flavor. That's all salt is. So if we could plant more, do our own backyard gardening, this is something that I would like to send out to the entire Caribbean and Dominicans as well. Plant more, because we know that people often use the, challenge of, I can't afford it anymore, so I'm gonna just eat what is available. So let's get into the habit of making it available for ourselves if we can.
We have much more in store for you on Caribbean Medical TV. To catch up on our prior episodes, be sure to visit our YouTube link for more.
Hello, I am Nigel Batiste, Group President and Chief Executive Officer of Republic Financial Holdings. The Republic Group has always prioritized the holistic development of the communities and the countries we serve. These include our collaborations with the Diabetes and Hypertension Association of Barbados and the Grenada Heart Foundation to counteract the effects of chronic and non-communicable diseases. We've also invested in programs to promote good health overall, while marrying food security. For us, this is just the beginning of our sustainability journey, which ultimately would lead to a Caribbean region that is safe, healthy, and sustainable for many generations to come.
Proper nutrition is the cornerstone for the athlete. But beyond this, it is a transformative pillar that all our bodies rely on regarding macronutrients and the energy required to recover and grow. This is a fundamental path in the health landscape of the Caribbean.
So locally, we are a soup nation. We do enjoy our little soups. So for a heart patient, we would make sure that if the person, especially not on a fluid restriction, because you do have heart patients that may be limited in terms of the types of fluid that they can have. Once that is no problem, then we keep it as simple as soup, where we offer simple starches, protein. It can be as simple as a meal that offers the simple carbohydrates, their protein, and low fat content, because we are dealing with the heart, and we do have to make sure that we do not add towards that condition by reducing particular nutrients within the meal. I usually use little charts. And on this chart would have the Caribbean 6 food groups, and from each food groups I will identify in terms of the foods where you will receive the most fiber as possible. So when we come from our staple foods, I will tell them all staples, you may not receive fiber from all staples, but I do indicate, okay, your ground provisions are okay, because you will get some fiber there. You can look at other things like your hot cereals, like oatmeal. You can also find high fiber there. Now, our local farine, that's also a great option in terms of a high fiber breakfast option or even dinner option. So I do go through the different food groups with them to identify the high fiber foods. Then we go to the legumes. Now we go to our different peas and beans. Now, our Vincentians, we love our green peas. So I always tell them, once you have your green peas available to you, you do add it within our meals because it is an excellent source of fiber and you still get to enjoy our green peas. Our fruits, our vegetables, we also encourage persons to consume. I know a lot of persons say, we're in a stage where these things are expensive. How do you expect me to keep up with that? But I always encourage patients. Within St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we always have seasons for particular fruits and vegetables. Use that season and utilize it as much as you can. When you see you have a lot of tomatoes on the market, you would be surprised to know that market vendor would sell you a big bag of tomatoes for the least amount of money just to get it off their hands. I always tell them to shop around. Try and get your fruits and veg when they're in season because it's easier to basically buy and purchase from your vendors.
I had the shock of my life when I went to a supermarket and I found that beef was more expensive than lamb. Now, many people like to use meat-based proteins, but you could have plant-based proteins as well. So you can mix in more peas and beans in your diet to substitute for meats if meats are becoming more expensive, for example. You also could do things like buy in season. When fruits and vegetables are in season, they tend to be cheaper. Buy in bulk, stock up in your freezer, so that when it gets expensive again, you have these products. And then you could also think about value-added products. So like when tomatoes are in season and very cheap, you can pulp your tomato, have a puree in the freezer. So when the price goes up again, you can pull that out to help reduce your costs. I think that people really do need to have a backyard garden so that even if you have okras or your bodi or your pumpkin or something, you have extra, you give your neighbor, they have extra, they give you. So the nutrition security can come at the community level as well. And there's so much enjoyment in having a little of your produce coming from your own backyard. You get an attachment to your food and you can really start seeing your nutritious choices coming out of your own home as well.
We often dread the word fat, but we need fat, right? And our cell walls are made up of phospholipids, which are fat. We need fat, right? So you could often see when somebody's diet is lacking fat because their cells, their skin doesn't even look that well. So we definitely need fat in our diet. There are good fats and there are bad fats. So when we're speaking of saturated fats, we're thinking of, the oils that we tend to often fry with, like the coconut oil, right? But when we're thinking of unsaturated fats, we're thinking of the more healthy fats. But one thing I would like to emphasize on something that's not commonly known is that the healthier fats are unsaturated fats, like olive oil, right? Like canola oil. But the moment heat is applied to that oil, the saturation bond is broken, so it then becomes unsaturation. While canola oil can be healthy, if you fry with that oil, it certainly becomes unhealthy because what is bonding, you see the benefits of chemistry here. What is holding or what is keeping it healthy is the water bond. So anytime heat is applied, it becomes unhealthy. So yes, we can use the healthy olive oil and the healthy canola oil, but think of using it in other ways, like if you're going to make a vinaigrette or something. That fat is important in terms of fighting disease. It's very good in fighting inflammation as well. The same way that we could get the tuna from a can, often there's the fisherman by the roadside selling fresh tuna that we could prepare in the very same way that we get from the can. And hey, guess what? The can is so expensive. I would prefer that, you get it from the seaside, from the fisherman, and prepare it at home. Good source of protein.
Antiguan waters, our waters are very clean. We have a lot of variety of fishes. The water is also, we have a lot of reefs where we can get our fish, our seafood from. My favorite type of fish is the barracuda. Snapper is another favorite by the locals. They like eating the snapper fish because it has a high, bright, nice looking color. Yeah, and it has, it's easy to clean too. The snapper fish is easier to clean because the scales are small and easy to come off the skin. You can't ever get tired of eating fish. It's good, it's better than chicken, I know for sure. The fishes out there that we catch are not chemically based to help them to grow. It's all naturally based food that the fish that we catch, they're eating natural food. We don't have them in a tank feeding them products made from factories or anything. So the fish from out the sea is best to consume because they're not being grown off of food made by factories or anything. They're all naturally eaten.
Many thanks, Andell, and happy fishing to you and all the fishermen of the Caribbean that bring in such great bounty. A complete and proper knowledge of nutrition is vital for every generation, especially the elderly population.
As it relates to the diets that can help to prevent the onset of dementia and also help persons who are living with the illness, the diets that have been shown to be beneficial in research would be foods that are rich in fruits and vegetables. There are studies on the Mediterranean diet. There's a lot of information relating to the use of the Mediterranean diet and helping to make a difference in people with dementia. So Mediterranean diet, olives, oily fish, they use sardines. Again, the fruits that we use nowadays are high in sugar. They're selected because they're high in sugar, but really and truly, the naturally growing fruits that are not as sweet are actually better for us than the ones that are high in sugar. So if it's sweet, I'm not saying don't have it, but one should be cautious in taking those foods. Because most of the things are farmed, you're gonna farm things that are going to sell. Things that taste good sell. It's not necessarily mean that they're the best for you, okay?
We know from WHO data that we're thought to be 8th in the world, apparently, I heard recently, according to COFA, in terms of childhood obesity, and that our obesity rates have gone up 4-fold over the last 10 years. And that's really stark data. Remember that when our kids are overweight and obese, then that really is a portent for what's going to happen in the next 10 to 20 years. We know it's linked to non-communicable diseases, or NCDs, like diabetes, hypertension, even things like orthopedic issues, right? So difficulties with hips and spine, for example, later on. And so we can do things now that can help protect and prevent these from developing later on in life. So lifestyle and our natural genetics interplay in lots and lots of complex ways. So we might know, for instance, that there's a strong family history of maybe type 2 diabetes, but we can potentially prevent those from happening by instituting healthy lifestyle changes. So for example, looking at regular physical activity, our food choices, going for whole unprocessed foods as close to nature as much as possible, and avoiding lots of sugary snacks, processed foods, making sure we're not sedentary and we're balancing our physical activity with time spent online, for instance. So we can make lifestyle choices that can affect the trajectory of that illness. It doesn't necessarily mean for conditions like these that it's going to be a definite. Well, I would say, actually, I usually start off by telling families, listen, our bodies are 70% water, and the only fluid we really need is water, actually. So we don't need juice. And so parents usually look at me in horror, but the truth is, actually, there's no need for juice in our diet. A lot of marketing companies will have us think otherwise, but you are better off having the fresh fruit, the whole fruit, than having fruit juices. A lot of packaged fruit juices actually have very little of the fruit content. They may have water base, often a lot of sugar added, and then things like additives, colorings, etc. And even if you told me it was fresh pressed juice, what's happening then is it's being squeezed out of the natural fiber scaffolding. So you're getting a huge hit of sugar. And so that's really not good for our systems either. So fresh fruit and water in preference to juice at all times, as far as I'm concerned.
Today, everybody wants to go and buy things. Things like celery, lettuce, pak choy, these fine little things. You can plant that in buckets and it will save your cost, because things are very expensive these days. Yeah, and initial stage, apart from that, I do little food crops, like I plant my little pawpaw on the side and integrate the pawpaw. The same pawpaw plants about 7 feet apart, and you integrate it with either hot pepper or pimento. So you get 2 crops in one. It is so easy that if you have things in your backyard and you can plant things, you will be saving money, eating healthy, and you have no problem. Trust me, you could use barrels, you could use buckets and plant in. You don't have to say I live in a concrete jungle. That was a thing of the past. We plant things on concrete because we have manure. All plants, especially these small plants for food and kitchen garden, is surface root. 4 inches of soil needed, not much. You will be surprised to know how much money you save. And teach your children to plant, and they will see their way. They will always see their way.
We must also consider how climate has impacted agriculture, with the core environmental impacts directly affecting our crops.
So because farming becomes more challenging with climate change, what we're seeing is that it also impacts on our food security at large. Not just because it becomes harder to produce certain crops or to have our livestock, especially the small livestock, protected against the heat, and also our plants to have enough water to subsist. We might also have to think about crop varieties that are more resilient to the heat and resilient to damage by flooding or die back because of drought. So that makes the situation a bit more challenging. But there's a lot of research being done regionally and also globally. And one of the groups that is, one of the CARICOM-led institutions that is most active in that regard is the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute, which is a sister institution.
Every year we do have Nutrition Awareness Week within the country as a unit, and it's a week of activities where we go to different aspects within the country. We go into the school settings, we go into the public service, we go into the private sector as well, because surprisingly what we've noted and what a lot of persons have also noted is that in the private sector we have a lot of persons suffering from these conditions. As stated before, we are having a lot of imported foods within our countries. COVID-19 alone was that factor. We also went through the La Soufrière eruption, which also saw damage to our local production of natural unprocessed foods. So because of that, we had a lot of influx of processed canned foods. So now we have to move away of trying to educate the public that even though these foods are available to us and to you, what is the best product to choose? How can you read a food label to reach to that point? And we also, when you're looking at sugar intake, we're also looking at our school children, what is available to them. It's a lot. It's a lot in what we're trying to achieve as a very small nation. But yes, in terms of the intake of these foods, yes, they can be detrimental to health, and we're doing our best to make sure that we educate as much as possible.
Our islands are resilient and our people determined. Through knowledge and understanding, we continue to build community-level initiatives to aid the impacts of climate change and food security. The strategies are before us, and the Caribbean is ready. Thank you for joining us on today's program of Caribbean Medical TV. See you soon.